I'm the Talent Resource Manager for Monash Talent. We would like to record this session today, so please let us know if there's any issues with that, or if you don't want your video on, please feel free to turn that off. So I'd really like to begin by acknowledging the people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional custodians on whose land I speak to you from today. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I extend this respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait people from other communities who are with us today. So as I said, my name's Sam. I'm the Talent Resource Manager for Monash Talent. So what does that do exactly? That means that I look after the operations and the recruitment side of our Monash Talent division. And we'll certainly go into more details about what Monash Talent actually does a little bit later today. So my background, I've worked in grad recruitment for a while, student internships as well. So I have a really strong passion for working with students and graduates like yourselves to meaningful opportunities and to see you guys grow in your careers. So I'm joined by my colleague Leah Strickland. So Leah will be running a quick session once I've spoken about, the main agenda for today. She'll tell you a little bit more about Monash Talent. She'll introduce herself then. But as I said, it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me and to the rest of the committee of MDSS. It's fantastic to have this opportunity to speak to you all. Next slide, thanks, Leah. So I just wanted to, let you know what we're going to be discussing in today's session. We have taken all of your questions that you submitted through the registration process. And what I've tried to do is theme those questions as best as I can. If I haven't answered your question, feel free to pop it in the chat today. There will certainly be plenty of opportunity at the end to ask questions. So yeah, feel free to pop that in the chat. If you want to pop that in the chat to everyone, it will just mean, because we've got a couple of people moderating the chat, so it will just be easier for them to ask the questions at the end. That would be great. So as I said, we have really tried to tailor this session to what you want to hear about. So we're going to be talking a little bit about data science industry insights. I know that you come from a variety of different degrees. So some of you actually are studying data science, others are computer science, some are more focused in engineering. But yeah, I will focus a little bit on data science industry insights. We'll also talk about what employers are looking for. So both Leah and I understand what a range of different clients our clients are looking for, and having been an employer myself, hiring graduates, I can provide some insights there as well. I'll also provide you with some practical steps, and I'm sure that's going to be one of the key takeaways from today is providing those practical steps. Exactly what can you do between now and when you graduate to, increase your employability skills, and also to, ensure that you're finding opportunities and securing those opportunities as well. Next. Oh, and as I said, there is the chat as well. So I'll just kick off with some data science industry insight. So this was an article from 2012. Now, that was a long time ago, but it was when the Harvard Business Review announced that data science was going to be the sexiest job of the 21st century. Now, as I said, 2012 was a long time ago, but it certainly still rings true. And it's probably one of the many reasons why you guys decided to pursue a career in this space, or why you have that particular interest. More and more organisations are really taking up the opportunity to use their hundreds, thousands, and in some cases millions of data points to really continue to, make business decisions and expedite processes, changing processes, and even, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the impacts of data science even on treatment and the vaccine for COVID-19. So as I said, from supporting the agricultural industry with, efficient food growth, it might be financial institutions, they've got all our data on our spending habits. So they want to make sure they're tailoring their offers to us and informing those market decisions. And as I said, you know, COVID-19, data science has certainly played a big part. I remember all of the graphics around flattening the curve. Now, it was data scientists along with epidemiologists that really came up with that. And that's obviously been a really important strategy within Australia to try and ensure that we're avoiding a healthcare crisis. But look, I know that you all know that there's a wide variety of pathways available to you. But I guess what I'd really like to prompt you to start to think about is what is the area that you really want to go into? You know, there's not a one-size-fits-all of data scientists or data scientists. So I think it's a really good opportunity now to start thinking about that, because that's really going to enable you to tailor your experiences while you're at university to where you want to go in the future. As I said, it's okay that if you don't know where you want to go, just start thinking about that. Next slide, thanks, Leah. So I was reading an article, it's actually by an organisation called Talent, not to be confused with Monash Talent. They are a recruitment agency specialising in IT, predominantly experienced hire positions, but they did some data, they did some research utilising LinkedIn data to really analyse what the top trends were, the top growth areas, and also the most in-demand skills. So I'll just kind of talk a little bit about some of these areas. Now, in terms of top technical trends, you guys are going to know far more about this than I, but I'll be able to give, I guess, just a little snapshot. But the visual there really does tell you, you know, where the top growth is, and that might actually help you to kind of hone your, or I guess, hone your skills in what you want to do next. So obviously, in terms of top trends, we've got augmented analytics. Obviously, in this huge data-driven world that we're operating in, you know, the vast amounts of data, we have to analyze vast amounts of data, and we need to do it quickly. So augmented analytics has certainly played a big part in that. And I was reading that last year, Forbes estimated that there would be around 35 zettabytes of newly created data globally by the end of 2020. Now, that is a lot of data. So yeah, augmented analytics has certainly been played a huge part in managing that volume of information. So using AI, using machine learning, insights can really be extracted really quickly to allow for, you know, speedier outcomes. For example, you know, when we were talking about COVID-19, AI has played a huge part in that, in terms of treatments, development, vaccine development, etc. But encourage you, you know, if you are interested in that space, just to, you know, hop online, Google a few articles. There's certainly a lot of information about that. And, you know, this article was written, this Talent and LinkedIn article was written last year. At that point, we didn't know the longer term effects of COVID, how long it was going to be around for. So certainly I would say that, you know, augmented analytics is still going to continue to grow, but certainly in the next little while. So natural language processing, as I'm sure you're all aware, this really focuses on the ability to take contextual data, quantify that information, and really transform it into numerical information and numerical values to be able to inform those decisions. So we're living in a world where everything has a context. In its simplest form, it's non-binary. So how do we take that information and transform it into something that is evidence, that we can draw evidence-based insights from? So again, it's going to be a big trend that's going to continue, particularly across Australia and New Zealand over the next little while, and most likely global. This article was more focused on the Australian and New Zealand market. Data migration. So everything's moving to the cloud, and with that comes a lot of complexities. So organisations are really needing to make sure that they have the appropriate infrastructure in place, that they're managing that information, that they're keeping it secure. They don't want people accessing all of your information. So yes, I mean, data data intelligence is playing a huge part in that as a cloud computing expert. So they're absolutely pivotal to that. In terms of data simplification, again, we're dealing with a lot of information. So we really need to look at ways to simplify this information to make it, I guess, more useful. We've got all this data, but how do we make it more useful? So it's looking at digesting, making it more accessible and understandable for business strategists to really be able to take those insights. And with those business strategists, you'll play a pivotal part as data scientists or data analysts or data engineers in informing those decisions. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the skills that come along with that a little bit later. So most in-demand skills. So this really focuses on the technical skills. This isn't focusing on those transferable skills that have to accompany these technical skills. In terms of I'll go back to the top growth areas for industry before I move on to the in-demand skills. But as you can see, financial services there is the biggest growth area, which I found quite interesting, actually. I just assumed it would be health and pharmaceuticals. I just made an assumption there that it would be, but it seems that the financial institutions have really taken that on board. I guess with the growth of non-brick and mortar banks like neobanks, the NABs, the big banks really need to look at ways of innovating and making sure that their client bases stay with them, because interest rates are what they are. Yes, they have a certain impact on people's decisions, but the RBA certainly sets that. So what else can they do to support us as customers? They have access to all of our information. If you really think about it, they know everything about us. So how else can they use that information to I guess increase their services, provide us with more tailored services to meet our needs. Insurance there is another big one. That was probably not as much surprising to me. I assumed that they would use that. It's all about risk and analysing risks, so it makes sense that data science, data analytics is really a big part, and is certainly a growth area. But insurance has really had a massive overhaul. There's been lots of investigations into insurance and insurance organisations. So they're really looking at the use of big data to leverage that information to improve. It might be customer service, it might be around risks, as I've mentioned before, and they do continue to be a really rapid adopter in that space. Another surprising one for me was higher education. Now, I assumed that, I knew that education is obviously an area that had to pivot and continue to offer online. But I was surprised at the growth in terms of data analytics and what they're using it for. So I was reading an article how by actually Talent, they outlined that universities are now able to use the data collected from you as students to identify potential students at risk of dropping out. So I think there's about a 15% dropout rate of students at university. So universities are really trying to identify at what point students are likely to drop out, and really analyse that information from all of your results and all of the other vast amounts of information they collect about you, to identify at what point that there might be an intervention. They could make a change. And to, I guess, convince you to stay on board. So I found that really, really interesting. As I said, I knew that there was certainly a lot of digitisation. I think universities have done a great job of just putting it all online rather than just going, oh, no, we're a brick and mortar and this is all we can offer. I think they've done a fantastic job in doing that, particularly at speed. Retail. So again, guided the e-commerce, obviously a lot of people buy online anyway. Walking along high streets, you can see a lot of shops were closing even pre-COVID, but I think that COVID has certainly accelerated that. So organisations are looking at taking big data, taking the information available to them to look at how they can still continue to offer tailored services, make market-led decisions on that information. I was also reading an article. So Levi, they, and I don't know the specifics, and sorry, I tried to get this just before the presentation around what exactly their campaign was and what the data was that they extracted, but I think they might be keeping it close to their chest. But they did a lot of data analytics around customers, around spending habits and trends. And what they did in Europe in May last year, was they had a big campaign based on the data that they'd collected. And they actually ended up taking in 5 times as much revenue as they had in 2019. So that's not just from an online store versus a brick and mortar store. That's just in general. That's revenue coming in 5 times more than they had previously done, which I found quite interesting, because I think a lot of people were probably wearing tracky pants during a COVID lockdown rather than jeans. But yeah, certainly in Europe, there was a massive spend there. The other one I've kind of touched on, health and big pharmaceuticals. So, you know, we've already talked about how AI has really rapidly taken up in this industry, specifically in relation to treatment, vaccines. But it's not just COVID-19, you know, we're talking about all other health organisations as well. There being you know, there's health monitor trackers that people have got Apple Watches or Fitbits. They're really impacting the health industry. You know, my watch tells me when I need to stand up and move around. Yeah, you know, the health industry has certainly been a big adopter of that data. So I will now just move on to most in demand skills. So this graph just here really explains the most in demand skills. As I said, it does focus on technical skills and does come from LinkedIn job titles as advertised throughout 2020. As you can see, computer programming languages such as SQL, Python and R are the highest demand, but there isn't much difference. You know, they're all quite highly regarded. Obviously SQL has got you know, a bit more than Python, but yeah, still there's not a huge difference, there. And obviously that's closely followed by business analytics, machine learning, and obviously data visualization tools such as Tableau and Power BI. Next slide, thanks, Leah. So I guess we talked a little bit about how learning data science can lead you to a range of different areas and can really revolutionise your career. But learning computer languages or AI doesn't necessarily mean jobs are just going to fall in your lap, which is probably why you're here, right? You want to find out how you can actually get a job with your data science degree or your computer science degree. So we'll certainly go on to that. But so it's always good to have a bit of a plan. You know, don't get me wrong, I love hopping in the car some days, going without a destination. But with your career, it's a really great idea to have at least some idea of where you might want to go, setting some kind of destination. Now, it doesn't mean you can't change track. It doesn't mean if you start in big pharma, doesn't mean you can't then move or you know, you start as a data engineer and then you want to move to be more of a business analyst or a pure data scientist. It doesn't mean that at all, but it's good to have a bit of a plan. You know, as you know, this you know, as I said, this kind of provides you with a bit of a visual of good to have that GPS set. And have some idea. In terms of my own career, obviously I'm not a data scientist, but I actually started out my career thinking I was going to be an accountant. Now I moved from being an accountant, working in accountancy, to working in HR. Now they're quite different areas, but yeah, I guess I had a bit of a plan, but then, you know, I did take a little bit of a detour and ended up where I am. But as I said, it's still good to have a bit of a plan, but be open to what might also come up. So next slide, thanks, Leah. So this bit of a hard to read slide, actually, sorry about that. So I guess this kind of takes me back to my question. So do you know what industry or stream of data science you want to pursue? It's okay if you don't know, but hopefully this is really the catalyst for you to start thinking about it. Do you know the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist and an applied scientist and a business intelligence engineer and the countless other job titles that you might undertake? So now's the time to do a little bit of research, and you're the ones that will really understand that. You know, think about what you enjoy. you know, you're going to spend the next goodness knows how many decades of your life working. So it's really important to be doing something that you enjoy. And again, that's going to change. What you learn now at university in terms of computer languages in 10, 15 years might completely change. But yeah, it's a good idea to start to think about that. As I said, think about what gives you satisfaction. What do you want to learn? Do you know what's involved in each of the different pathways? Do you know how to spend your time now to get yourself to your destination? So I found a really interesting article on Springboard. And yeah, if anyone wants links to articles and things like that, please let me know. I found some really interesting platforms. But I encourage you to be also doing a lot of research as well. But I found an interesting article on Springboard about different pathways. And on the next slide, thanks, Leah. It gives you a really great visual of some of the skills required for a data engineer versus a data science versus a data analyst. Now, as you can see, all skills are required, but the amount of skills that are required in each certainly differ. So this might be useful in you deciding, right, I want to be a data engineer, which really means, focusing a lot on maths, stats, and algorithms, as well as software engineering. But maybe you want to be a data analyst, so you really want to be looking at data communication, those storytelling. Obviously, you need the background of maths, stats, and algorithms, as well as a little bit of software engineering in there as well. Yeah, this kind of gives you a bit of a visual, and there's lots and lots of resources like this online as well. If you had a particular job title in mind, or a particular space that you wanted to go into, definitely encourage you to do a bit of research around that. But yeah, look, based on this, you can generally say that, as I said, data engineers rely more on engineering skills. Data scientists rely on their math skills, and data analysts rely on their communication skills and obviously their domain expertise as well. Yeah, obviously you need to have a range of those skills. So next slide, thanks, Lynn. Now this visual here comes from another blog I was reading, and provides, I guess, a bit more further visuals around the types of skills you'd be looking to possess for each of the different pathways. What was really interesting to me looking at this is the level of business acumen that's required, and that business acumen is required in every single area. So you can't assume that you're operating in this vacuum of data science, because that's not the case. You really need to think about the fact that you are going to be working within an organisation, whether that is healthcare, whether that is big corporate. You're still working within a business. You're still working within an organisation. So you really need to have that awareness around that. So, you're going to be going into organizations and solving their problems. So to solve their problems, you need to understand that it's going to have impacts on people. It's going to have impacts on systems. It's going to have impacts on processes. There's people that are going to be, concerned about a data scientist coming in and potentially taking away their job. So you need to think about those impacts and the cultural impacts. Yes, you're not the one responsible for culture shift, but it's still good to be mindful of that when you're going in. So yeah, there's a bit of a visual there. Next slide, thanks, Leah. Now, I don't know how many of you are applying for roles at the moment. I assume probably the majority of you, which is probably why you've all turned up today. But I just want to preface that there's no one rule to getting noticed by employers, okay? So everyone's looking at different things. However, AI is increasingly being used by organisations to identify potential candidates. When you've got 200, 400, 800 applications, how can you quickly analyse that information to be able to pick out the top 10, depending on how many roles you've got? So AI is certainly being used in that, and that's obviously through reviewing CVs. It might be taking data from LinkedIn. So it's taking information from a variety of different sources. So you need to make sure that you're, that you really put your best foot forward in terms of digital presence and your CV. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But as I said, it's really critical to highlight what employers are looking for specifically, as well as providing examples. You know, employers don't want to just see a shopping list of you knowing SQL. They don't want to say that you know Python. They need to see how you've applied it. They don't want to just see a shopping list, particularly when it comes to AI, but also people as well. As a recruiter myself, but you know, I need to see evidence. Proof is in the pudding, as they say. So I need to see evidence that you've absolutely applied that. So next slide, thanks, Leah. So I've noted down a few, I guess, areas I just kind of want to focus on specifically for the field of data science. I'm going to firstly talk about technical skills because it is important. Regardless of what area you want to go into, you need to have a baseline of technical skills and you need to have application of those skills, not just theory. So as I said, every organisation is going to be different. Every role is going to be different. You know, a data scientist in one organisation versus a data scientist in another organisation potentially going to have slightly different needs. But as we saw in one of the previous slides, in terms of computer languages, you really want to be focusing on SQL, Python, and R. Business analysis, machine learning, data visualization, you know, Tableau, Power BI. Is there an opportunity for you to use those tools in a real life example? Other technical tools you might want to consider are cloud technologies such as AWS, Google Cloud platforms, big data tech such as Hive or Spark. So be doing a bit of research around that as well. I'm not the expert in that space. It's certainly not the person to be giving you in-depth knowledge, but definitely I would encourage you to kind of go away and look for opportunities to build skills in those spaces. As I said, related to what you want to do in your future. As I said, you know, you've really got a lot on this year, and you really need to spend your time in the best possible way based on where you see yourself going. Look at opportunities to demonstrate these technical skills through hackathons, through any other hobby groups. There might be other hobby groups at Monash that you know could use your skills. As I said, find ways to really apply that into real life, but also look at ways in which you can develop those skills yourself, self-learning, and we'll talk a little bit about that soon. But you know, tech is constantly evolving, and to remain employable, you really need to keep up to date with the speed of change. It's really important to, you know, just because you think you've mastered SQL right now, doesn't mean things won't change. So you need to keep up to speed. What I've listed isn't a fully comprehensive list of every single technical skill that any role within data science needs. So do encourage, I just kind of wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the top trends based on research. So do encourage you to go away and do a bit of research as well in regard to that. What else can I tell you about data skills? Yeah, you know, I've obviously talked about being adaptable and the need to constantly upskill. So I think that covers technical skills. But yeah, feel free if you have any particular questions, pop those in the chat. Portfolio. Now, for you, it is so important. I cannot stress this enough. Having a portfolio of your work is proof that you can do what you've said that you've done. It backs up everything in your CV. Yes, you want to elaborate a little bit in your CV about what the projects that you have done, but creating a GitHub account is a great way to share your work and collaborate with others. So if you don't already have one, please sign up. Please start putting your work on there. Please start looking at others as well. Do it now before you get to the end of the semester or the end of your degree, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I haven't got one, and what did I do? Start doing that now. It is absolutely vital in your space, absolutely vital, and is what employers are looking for. They want to see that there is proof that you have done those things. They may even ask you in an interview to talk about your portfolio and to demonstrate what you've done. So make sure that you can speak about that as well. Creativity. So creativity in data science is more than just a pretty looking data dashboard. It is more about, I guess, how you solve problems. And I'm kind of grouping creativity, curiosity, and complex problem solving kind of all together here. But it really is around how you solve those problems once you've been curious enough to understand them, and I guess innovative enough to kind of, take a chance. It's looking at ways to find ways around limitations. I logged onto Chrome this morning. My Google Momentum dashboard this morning actually gave me a great quote for this, which I thought was very, very interesting. It says, ask how something can be done rather than ask how something can be done rather than it can't be done. So rather than saying, no, can't do that, just have a think, be creative. How can it be done? And that's something that I can probably do with in my role as well. I feel like I probably say no a lot, that things can't be done. So definitely something I'll take away. But look for opportunities for you to highlight that creativity throughout your resume. As I said, this might be through joining hackathons, ideathons, joining entrepreneurial groups and other hobby groups. And so constantly look for opportunities to prove you are creative. It's no good just to say, I'm creative. As I said, I'm kind of lumping complex problem solving and curiosity and creativity all together, but just touching on complex problem solving. You all solve problems on a daily basis. We're all familiar with, making quick decisions. But to solve complex problems, you really need to apply a range of skills. So, as I said, creativity, innovation, ability to research, collaboration is another key one, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So in that sense, I guess it's an all-encompassing skill. Complex problem solving, it doesn't operate in a vacuum. So you're going to be going into organizations to solve their complex problems. That's why you're going to be hired. So just look at ways in which you can prove that you've solved complex problems. Again, hackathons are a great example of that. Curiosity, I'm sure you've all pursuing this particular career because you are curious about I guess the endless possibilities based on the information that we have and the information that we continue to collect. I know maybe you're a naturally curious individual who's really interested in the ever-evolving world of technology. So remaining curious is going to be key to your success as well. Really asking questions. When you go into an organisation, don't assume that your seniors can see the same insights that you can. Take that chance and let your seniors know that you've seen something that maybe they haven't, or if they have seen it, maybe there's a reason why they didn't raise it. So it's part of your learning. So do continue to be curious there. AQ. So we all know about IQ, we all know about EQ, but what about AQ? So that's really around your adaptability quotient. So it's about your ability to adapt to the inevitable, which is change. We've all seen last year was not what we expected. And we are being asked to grapple with more and more change at a rapid rate. So we are being asked to change, to pivot, to move, to be agile on a moment by moment basis. So employers really want to see that you have this ability, that you can pivot, that you can change, you're not just stuck in your ways. There's no one formula to show adaptability, but if you are pursuing a master's of data science degree, but you've previously studied engineering or come from a different background, that's an example of your adaptability. You might be an international student that's moved to Australia. Again, that's highlighting your adaptability there as well. And we've seen that businesses throughout the last 12 months have had to adapt, otherwise they didn't survive. And so the same principle certainly applies to us. I'll quickly go through the others because I'm just mindful of time. So collaboration, we all know what collaboration is. We all collaborate with each other across a range of different ways in our life. And it is really vital to your success. But it is rare that you're going to be working in a silo. You're going to be working with other data scientists or at least other stakeholders within an organisation who may not have your background. So it's really important to be able to cross collaborate as well. And organisations really value diversity of thought. So If there's opportunities for you to do multidisciplinary teamwork, definitely get involved in that, because that's an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you can work with individuals from other backgrounds. Self-driven. Now, employers don't provide you when you start on day one with a document that says, right, you are going to start as a junior data scientist, and this is going to be your pathway, and you need to do X, Y, and Z. Yes, there is a part around your daily role, but you need to be self-driven, and organizations want to see that. You are the driver of your own career, and your career is in your hands only. So this quality can be demonstrated through, through joining hackathons. I keep talking about hackathons, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to look for opportunities, both within university but outside university, to prove your skills there. Employers want to see that you don't just wait to be told what to learn, that you will actually look at the specific pathways for yourself, and that you'll continue to develop yourself. You'll drive your own career. So make sure you're taking control of that. Learning agility. Now, I don't know if anyone's kind of come across this before, but learning agility is, I guess, typically been thought of something that senior leaders have, but it's actually really important for you as early career professionals, because of change. We can't rely on what has gone before to serve us now. I've talked about change is the only constant. So learning agility is really about the ability to learn from other unrelated experiences, but yet apply those learnings in a totally different situation. So to develop this skill, I would probably look at reflection. So when you are doing a hackathon or utilizing your skill in any other way, take some time to reflect what worked, what didn't work, because there may be circumstances where you can take that learning from that scenario and apply it in a totally different way. So self-reflection is really important, and it's going to be an important part of your career as well. There's rarely any time for self-reflection, I have to say, but when you're a working professional, but it is really important to continue to develop your learning agility there. Communication skills. So I've talked about, communication skills in the workplace, infinitum, communication skills are important. Everyone says it. So it's definitely not new news to you, but as a successful data scientist, or whichever pathway you choose to pursue, your ability to translate numerical data into actionable insights is going to be pivotal to your success. So you're going to be talking to people that have no idea, that need to just really, they don't necessarily need to understand the black and white of the data. They need to know what the story is. So this is kind of leading me into storytelling, and it's going to be a huge part of your role. So communication and storytelling definitely go hand in hand. As I said, storytelling kind of goes beyond the black and white of the data and looks at what it means in the context in which you are operating. So you really need to be able to explain to the stakeholder what the problem is, what the data is actually telling you, what the solutions are, and what the potential result of that is. Okay, so it's really around telling a beautiful story based on all that information that you've spent hours and hours and hours analysing. One thing that I haven't noted here is around commercial and business acumen. I've kind of talked about it a little bit on one of the other slides, but as I said, it's really helpful to have that understanding of how businesses operate. You don't need to be an expert, but it's useful for you to understand what challenges industries are facing, to really understand what their core problems are. So do encourage you to keep up to date with business news. If you have a particular passion for a particular industry, signing up to newsletters, or just even looking on the news, what's happening in the pharmaceutical industry, what's happening in the financial services industry, keeping up to date, and that's going to be really pivotal to your success. Next slide. Thanks, Leah. Okay, so what can you do right now? What are the practical steps that you can do? So I feel like I've probably given you a shopping list of all the skills that employers are looking for, but it's important to remember that these things are not mutually exclusive, okay? So as I mentioned, complex problem solving can't be done without innovation, without creativity. So as I said, don't see this as a list of things that you need to tick off one by one. Yes, you need to have examples of all of those, but that example might cover numerous skills Yeah, just keep that in mind when you're kind of collating that information. So what I've done here is kind of build 4 key pillars of the things that you can do right now. So first of all, we've got developing the tools. So in terms of developing the tools, when I was outlining some of the skills that employers are looking for, I've tried to provide you with, I guess, ways in which you can develop those skills. But the place that you're going to need to highlight these skills is going to be your resume, is going to be LinkedIn, and it's going to be GitHub. Okay, so your resume needs to be polished, it needs to be professional, and it's the first thing that the hiring manager is going to see about you. So what story does your resume tell about you? What information does it give? Does it contain all of the relevant information that relates to the specific role that you're applying for? There's no use just having one resume and applying for 100 different roles, because every organization has different keywords, okay? Especially if they're using AI in screening those applications, you need to pick out those keywords from that particular job ad and make sure that they're in your CV. As I said, it really needs to align with the particular role. There's lots of practical tools online in terms of resumes, but also strongly encourage you to use the career services at Monash as well, because they'll be able to guide you in perfecting your resume. LinkedIn, it's good to have an online digital presence in terms of LinkedIn. Again, I could run a whole session probably on LinkedIn skills, but Career Connect also run a fabulous session, so I do strongly encourage you to sign up to that. GitHub kind of talks about that. If you're going to only take away one thing from this session, creating a portfolio has got to be it. Okay, so please make sure that you do that. The next pillar I've put is around building the skills. So what that means is looking for opportunities to develop or demonstrate how you've applied those skills. You know, I've kind of touched on that a little bit about employers and what they're looking for and how you can demonstrate those skills, but you need to look for ways to demonstrate it. There's no use just having that shopping list on your CV. Keep going back to hackathons and ideathons, but get involved with MDSS. You know, if you're not already a member, check out their hackathons or any other ideathons that might be running with any other hobby groups. Look for opportunities to apply your skills with in other spaces. Potentially there is an opportunity for data to be analysed in some of those hobby groups to help inform decisions, but they haven't thought about it. So pitch yourself to them, you know, as a potential member. Volunteering. So I think, you know, I know that you're all super busy. You've all got really busy schedules. You also need to have a social life as well. But if there's an opportunity to do some volunteering, think about that. So, you know, it doesn't have to directly be related to your study. Yes, great if it is, but you're still going to be building complex problem solving, communication skills, potentially storytelling skills throughout a range of experience as a volunteer. But also you might join an organisation that you're just super passionate about because you really care about Australian wildlife, or you care about finding a cure for cancer. And maybe that not-for-profit organisation could actually really do with your skill set. You know, I volunteer for a local artisan market. I'm just there to help set up on the day, but from my finance background, I was able to go in and help support them and set up, I guess, a finance system for them. So I was able to contribute my skills in a way that I didn't think that I was going to. I thought I was literally just going to be hands and legs on the day. But yeah, I was able to contribute my skills there. So have a think about that. Work experience. So again, it doesn't have to be directly related to your degree, but you can still develop skills that they're going to show your employability. So whether that be working at McDonald's, or whether that's going to be working at a retail store, or maybe you want to, you know, look at starting your own business. You know, you're on, and you don't have to all be entrepreneurs. And I think there's something for everyone. You don't have to be that entrepreneurial mindset. There's as I said, there's still opportunities, lots of opportunities for you to build your employability skills. The next important one is around, sorry, and I'm mindful of time, I've kept talking. The next one is around translating your experience. So what I'm talking about here is how can you demonstrate the skills in a way that are going to resonate with a hiring manager. So as a postgraduate student, you're highly qualified, for example. We know it, you know it, but it's important to be able to translate that experience in what it means for an employer. Okay, So, and I'm just going to give an example of a PhD candidate here, but, PhD candidates, they might have, lots of journals published. They might put pages and pages on their resume of all the journals that they have published, but to a recruiter, that means nothing. What does it actually mean in terms of the job that you're applying for? What does, having those journals published really mean in practice? So, think about breaking it down into the skill that you're applying for. If you've got those, 4 Q1 journals published, I guess it's more around, you're demonstrating your research skills, exceptional research skills. You're demonstrating your critical thinking. You're demonstrating your project management skills. So break it down into the skill itself, rather than just listing what you've done. Same as in your work experience, rather than just saying customer service. Exceptional communication skills developed through liaising with a range of stakeholders is another way of saying customer service skills. And that's going to resonate more with a hiring manager. Upskilling. So this is the Monash motto, Incoro Imparo, I'm still learning, and it's never been more important. So the industry needs to see more than your transcripts. They want to see that you are so passionate about your subject area, that you've built your own e-commerce website, or you've created a small startup, or you've co-founded a local charity, or, as I said, simply volunteered. Used your skills to volunteer, or being a part of a student association. So think about ways that you can build your skills outside the lecture theatre. I remember one of my previous clients looking for IT graduates, and I would send him all these highly qualified IT grads, and he had said, Sam, I don't care about their transcripts. Just tell me what they like to do outside of uni, because he wanted to see that they'd built their own computer, or that they'd been a part of a student association, attended hackathons, those sorts of things. So he didn't care about transcripts. And look, everyone is different. Some people will really care about your transcripts, but it's just an example that employers want to see a holistic view about that. It is important to still have, good grades. Absolutely. It's still important to be a master of your art, but it's also important to have those additional skills as well. So as I've mentioned, technology moves so fast. You need to continually be upskilling. Thinking, you don't have to even go back to uni to upskill. Think about micro-credentialing, in your future, or short courses. And then think about ways that you've actually applied those skills. So you might learn something through LinkedIn Learning, or you might do a short course, but then make sure you apply that skill, that it's not just a qualification listed on your resume. How did you apply that skill? So I guess that kind of ends my section. I'm hoping that we'll have some time for questions, but I will just pass over to my colleague Leah, who'll just give you a quick rundown of Monash Talent, and I guess how we can help support you in kickstarting your career. So pass it over to you. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks everyone for joining us. So I am mindful of the time, and I know we've already got some really good questions in the chat, so I will keep it nice and brief. But basically, my name is Leah. I am a recruitment consultant for Monash Talent. And so Monash Talent, basically, we advertise quality jobs and we help you to find meaningful employment either while you're at uni, so we have opportunities for students, or as a graduate as well. And it is a service that is available to grads up to 3 years out of university. So keep that in mind if you decide to change your career path once you've graduated. Basically, what we would like for you to do is to register for our service, which involves creating a profile on our Monash Talent platform. And we will then be able to use that registration to contact you in the instance that we might have a role for you. And so obviously, Sam's already mentioned all the ways that data science, engineering, business analysts, that kind of thing is really valuable to employers. And we hope to be the kind of connection for you guys with industry to help you really find those jobs. And we know that's why you're here. That's why you're listening to us talk. That's why you did a degree, is you really want the job. So I might skip the video, Sam. Yeah, perfect. Sam just said hi really briefly. So I'm going to take you through how it works. And I might just ask, guys, has anyone already registered, just by, I guess, a show of your little hand reaction? No. Yes, Jeremy, my star, good job. So it is a really easy process. It's not difficult. And Bhavik, thank you, that's great. It's nice and quick. So basically you will create a profile on our platform. It doesn't take too long. And then you'll be able to see all of the jobs that we have open at the moment, and you would apply for a role. So from there, if you make the shortlist, the team would chat through with you that role, help you prepare for an interview. And then once you've interviewed, if you're successful, obviously wonderful outcome, you would be hired. But if you're unsuccessful, we also provide tailored feedback to you to help you improve for the future. And that is where I guess Monash Talent does really differ from other services, because we know our clients so well. They are looking exclusively for Monash talent, obviously. We're able to really prepare you well for interviews and provide you really detailed feedback if you're unsuccessful. Obviously, from there, you would still be considered for other jobs, and we would be in touch with you if we have other things that we think you're suitable for. One more thing I do think is really important with Monash Talent is it's kind of one of those you've got to be in it to win it things. So we routinely get opportunities for employment that the client doesn't have time to advertise. We don't have time to do a full recruitment process for them. And in that instance, we would be giving you a call to say, hey, I've got a data science role. Jeremy, are you available over the next 6 weeks? What do you think of this opportunity? And by being in our pool of candidates, if you've registered with Monash Talent, we can look you up, we can put in some keywords and do a search and find out whether you might be a good candidate to float to that client. So a lot of our roles aren't advertised, and you can go and have a look on the website to see the ones that currently are, but we do routinely reach out to candidates to get them into roles without advertising them. I'm mindful of the time, but I do just want to really point out that we are big supporters of international students and international graduates, and Monash takes really seriously that education piece. So the clients we work with, we take great care to educate them about how they might be able to use international students and international graduates and what their visas actually do allow, to make sure that they're considering those candidates and really advocating for international candidates. So finally, I would love it if you could join our Monash Talent community. So this is an exclusive community for Monash students and graduates on Facebook. It is where we post job-related content and also all of our hot jobs that we're advertising at the moment. We also are doing something at the moment called Marching into Success, because obviously there are a lot of grad programs open over the next couple of months. So we're posting tips and tricks for assessment centres, how to manage your way through those grad programs and how to really ace the application. So if you're interested in that at all, I would really encourage you to join the Monash Talent community. And I will wrap up there and we'll start taking some questions, I think. I'm sure you guys have some good questions to ask.
Yes, I can see. I'll start from the top. Okay, so we've got a question around, do employers seek data scientists consider previous work experience in IT, systems engineer in your case? Absolutely, absolutely. Any experience is good experience. It can be any experience. You know, as I said, it's about building your employability skills. So, you know, whatever you can, I guess, think about how it relates to your to the particular role that you're looking for. What particular skills as a system engineer can you bring? There's a whole range. You know, your complex problem solving skills is definitely up there, which means you have, you know, creative problem solving skills as well, creativity, collaboration. Absolutely. I think that would be a really great, make sure that you put that on your CV. Yeah, they will absolutely take that into consideration. As I said, any experience is good experience. We've got another question around, can you use projects you did at university in your portfolio? I think it's always good just to check with your lecturer, just to confirm that they're happy to do that. So just check with that. with your, and look, I'm not as familiar with GitHub as probably you guys, but if there's an opportunity for you to attribute part of, certain parts of other people's work, to say that it's not necessarily your work, but it was a collective piece, absolutely, just to, like you say, avoid taking someone else's work that they've already put up. So make sure that you're kind of attributing any particular work that you're publishing to that individual. And please let me know if that doesn't answer your question as well. Feel free to pop that in the chat as well. In terms of, had another question around if you're in the last round and there's a couple of candidates in the running and you're aware of that, but you were just picked at the post by someone else, what can you do, or how can you make yourself stand out from those other 2 or 3 candidates that might be interviewing? I guess with that, it's a tricky one, because you don't know who else is interviewing. Okay, if you knew exactly their backgrounds and what their skills and experience and personality was like, you'd have a better idea of what you need to do. But I guess employers want to see, as I said, all of the skills that I've mentioned. Authenticity is important as well. Be you. Don't try and be someone that you're not, because employers will see straight through that. Don't over elaborate on your skills. Yes, you need to be confident in talking about what your skills are. You need to be confident in your abilities. Don't obviously over elaborate, but also don't underestimate your skills either. And I was talking to Jeremy a little bit about this question before we hopped into this session, and at the end of the day, it is around, when you've got 3 candidates, it's going to be around who, you might like all of them, but you need to make one decision. So is it a case that they just happen to get on, more with one of the other candidates? Doesn't mean that they didn't get on with you, doesn't mean that they don't think you're fantastic, doesn't mean that they don't think you can do the job. It just means, you're going to spend hours and hours and hours with people each week. So maybe it was just that. I think, but for me, key is being authentic. I, as a recruiter, can see straight through it when someone's not being authentic, when someone's just saying what I think they think I want to hear. So for me, I'm always going to go with authenticity. I ran a recruitment process recently, it was just one thing I absolutely looked out for, was authenticity. In that, are they passionate about what they do, or are they just telling me that they're passionate? And are they able to provide examples of all the skills that they've said? So it is a tricky one, but just be yourself and have faith in yourself as well. Absolutely have faith.